You can go back and watch them later. So we have a YouTube channel where you can catch um, past recordings, anything that you missed or that you want to view again is there on our YouTube channel. We also have um, a Slack board where we can communicate asynchronously. Feel free to post information about things you're working on, ask questions of the group. It's also a great place to find announcements from me or others. So check that out if you haven't already. I know most of you, so thanks for being here. But if you've just found your way here, this is the Libraries Build Business monthly community discussion. These are informal peer-to-peer conversations about entrepreneurship and small business support programs, resources, etc. in the library. So it's great to have you all here. Today we're talking, Stacy's going to lead us in a discussion about what's going on with SCORE. I said at the beginning, I don't think we have all of the answers, but we're hoping we can piece together some information with you all here. Love to talk about what you're seeing or hearing from your SCORE chapters, how you've been able to work with them. So it doesn't have to be just like this current moment, but ways you've worked with SCORE in the past if you want, and adjacent topics. So for those of you that were on early, Brittany brought up the SBDC, which she's having some challenges with. So if there are other things you're hearing that might impact business services, particularly in this environment, add that to our conversation as well. Okay. Anything else? Any other announcements before I turn it over to
Diane.
Stacy?
Diane.
Yeah, hi, Diane. Nice to see you.
Wow. Yay. Well, thank you, Megan. I wanted to start by saying when Megan was talking with me about this topic, I told her that I would try to be circumspect and professional, but a lot of the stuff that I wanted to share with the group is kind of unofficial. Like we just had our SCORE chapter meeting is actually next Tuesday. It's the third Tuesday of the month, so it's probably 2 weeks away. Um, And so there was a lot of information at the last SCORE chapter workshop, but I know that the chapters are all very different. And as far as the makeup and who the volunteers are, the volunteer mentors and the people working, our chapter, the most active members are all retirees. Some of them are in their 70s. And so I just kind of took with a grain of salt what I heard from them. So please don't quote me on a lot of this stuff, but some of the things with the Doge budget cuts and other things, what I'm seeing in our local Spokane chapter is that like they had a paid office admin position that was eliminated. They had another person who was working with the SBA, a part-time with the SBA and a few hours a week with SCORE, and her position was eliminated. And those two positions were the people that worked with me to get we do a monthly workshop with our local SCORE chapter, which we pay out of our programming budget, so that they're free to our customers. And so now we're in a bit of chaos as they're trying to plan the spring workshops for us, and I don't know who's setting those up and what's going to be happening with that. But a couple things that I heard at our SCORE chapter meeting was that, and this again is going to be different for every state, but like in Washington State, there's at least three currently, or there were 3 or 4 different SCORE chapters. There's ours that serves Eastern Washington and Northern Idaho. There's one in the central part of the state that serves Yakima Valley. There's a giant SCORE chapter in Seattle, as you would expect. And then Laura might be able to correct me on this. I think there's kind of a combined one that does Vancouver, Portland. Um, but what I heard from our SCORE president, our chapter president, was that on the national level, they're looking at collapsing or combining all of the smaller chapters into one. So there would just be one chapter per state, which I'm not sure how that will work with some of the states like Northern Idaho, where we've got a chapter that's currently serving, because of geography, the northern part of the state and the eastern part of Washington. So that's all happening. There was a lot of concern in our chapter meeting about local chapter finances, because us, for example, we pay $200 a month out of our programming budget for these monthly SCORE workshops, which are virtual, they're online with Zoom. Um, SCORE, our local chapter treats that as a sponsorship. And so they were hearing from other chapters that local, this is where you don't quote me, please, but like local chapters are depositing their sponsorship monies that they get locally to help pay for local chapter business into their SCORE account, which SCORE National has access to. And so SCORE National can access that money and take it to be used on a national level, which if that's happening, that's pretty shady. It seems like. So I'm not sure what's happening there. I know that our chapter at our meeting, our membership, you know, recommitted their intent to provide free mentoring services, like that's still happening. I don't know what's going on with other chapters around the country, but like for us in Spokane, they haven't been in the office, which they had office space that they shared out of the Small Business Administration office. They haven't used that space since before the pandemic. So they've officially like been kicked out is probably too strong a word, but like they are no longer associated with the SBA office at all, which again, they weren't doing in-person workshops or having in-person meetings. So it's not as big of a shift as it could have been, but it just seems like there's a whole lot of things that are unilaterally happening at the national level, and the local chapters are trying to scramble to adapt to. So I'd be really interested to know if other, you know, what your experiences with your local SCORE chapter have been, if we can just, you know, chat about it, have a discussion.
So,
Hey,
and I,
Stacy. Oh, sorry. I
Yeah.
just wanted to add a comment. Our SCORE chapter has been like invisible for the most part. And you know, we hosted a group. This was probably several months ago from SCORE, and they wanted to know all about what the library did to help business owners. And I just think it was interesting because we expressed several times during that meeting that we would love to partner with them, and then there was nothing. And
Yeah.
so we do a monthly community partners meeting, which we've done since the pandemic. We invited those individuals to come. No one came. And then the
Mhm.
last meeting we had, one of the individuals showed up and she said she would love to partner. But she did mention that they're going through massive reorganization and many changes are happening. And she didn't share what those were, but I bet it's the same thing about
Yeah.
the local monies being given to the national group. And I don't know, is that even ethical? I don't know. But anyway, so it's not been a very fruitful time, that
Right.
particular collaboration.
Thank you for sharing that, Diane.
Absolutely.
And I know some of you were not on the call yet when Paul was sharing that he's not been able to get a hold of anybody in the New York chapter of SCORE that's closest to him. And so like emails are bouncing back and no one's answering the phone. So they're definitely in flux. I don't know if anyone else has experience they'd like to share or frustration.
Yeah, I can say, and I'll confirm, Stacy, what you said. I'm here in Southwest Washington State. We have a really active, big SCORE group that serves Southwest Washington and the Portland metro area, and they've been great. They're our strongest business partner. We've had a great relationship with them for 8 years. I just had a program with them yesterday. It's part of a series that has not been well attended. Great content, excellent program. It's on government contracting. We're also working with the Washington Apex Accelerator for that. But I mention it because SCORE said we think our low attendance is because we didn't promote it properly due to drastic changes. We didn't have time to get into that, but they also haven't been attending our monthly provider meeting. So I'm really getting the feeling they're, working on doing more with less, like a lot of our us are. And we're finding that with almost all of these nonprofit business providers that we work with, less and less can they attend our meetings. People, like, positions are being cut, so my contacts at some of these organizations are just gone. In a lot of cases, they're not allowed even, or don't have the funding to attend fairs that we host. So it's been a really tricky time to try to even plan with these groups. And I appreciate this being the topic today because we're all so busy. I haven't had a chance to really talk to my local chapter about what is going on over there. So
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it's really challenging, and I appreciate that I am still able to get people to return my emails and calls from our local chapter. The other thing I was going to mention is that at our chapter meeting last month, I I usually send them a check 3 times a year based on our promotional cycle. So like as soon as they've done our spring workshops, I send them a check for those 4 programs. And this is the first time where their person was like, could you please hold off and like don't send us that check? Like they don't want to deposit it and have it potentially have that money removed. So I have a note to like hopefully pay, like I need to pay you before the end of our fiscal year because I want you paid out of our current year's budget. But I think that they're kind of looking to, and maybe the Vancouver chapter is doing a little bit of this too, but I get the sense that our chapter is kind of looking to Seattle to see what they're going to do. And if there's something they can do that will mitigate some of these challenges that they're getting on the national level. So I don't know what those are, and hopefully there'll be a good update in a couple weeks when our chapter meets again, but other, oh, yeah, Jennifer.
Yeah, I used to work for the New York State SBDC, the central office up in Albany. And has anybody tried calling their central SBDC office? Because they would be a nexus about what's going on. And, you know, they are funded by they're funded through a grant through the SBA. So, yeah, funding has been really weird. And I'm wondering if the red state versus blue state services are gonna, are affecting this or what.
Oops,
Um,
oops.
but has anybody contacted their local SB or their state branch of SBDC?
I
No,
have
I
not
haven't.
yet. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say no, I haven't. And let's be clear, we're talking about SCORE right now because there's SCORE and SBDC, two different beasts. But I know it's all the acronyms. Yeah,
I
my
know, I
SCORE.
know there's a difference, but
I know you do.
the SCORE people usually work with the SBDC. Don't you?
Sure.
It's usually a
Yeah.
referral thing. And if you can't get hold of SCORE, you can talk to their partner.
Right.
And you're right, Jennifer, because like, and I think some of it is, I mean, Spokane is a big city population wise, but like we still are kind of a small town, I think, with this sort of thing, because there's a number of SCORE mentors who actually work at SBDC. So that pool is pretty small. And I think there's a lot of crossover. So yeah, I have not called our group either, and I should.
My SCORE contact down here just told me that what little funding they'd been getting from the Central Oregon SCORE for like promotional materials has been cut. And so that combined with some illnesses among the cohort, because mine are all like in their 80s too, has meant that they haven't been doing anything for the past 6 months.
Contact your congressional member. I
Oh,
mean,
I have many things to talk to Representative Bentz about. He doesn't want to hear any of them.
Ryan, thank you for your post about Central Ohio. I had heard that it looked like they were going to be charging for webinars now, which, yeah, that's definitely a shift because everything kind of went free during the pandemic and stayed free of charge. But now it looks like they're shifting back.
Yeah, it looks like that's the case for Matt in Illinois as well.
is this an
No.
SBA thing? Has anybody looked at that national level? Because are they being funded? Are they being
This is-
gutted or are they not?
This is Kristen in Plano. My video's not on, but I'm sorry I came late a little to the meeting, so I'm not sure exactly what was discussed, but our SCORE chapter has been very, very strong and a really, really integral part of what we're doing for businesses. And they told me that the changes that have been made, it's due to funding that they've basically been cut. And our chapter is looking at raising money and finding ways to do that, and that they are doing more regional and national webinars. All webinars will cost $10, as Matt said. And that, so like they won't, we were doing things with them where they were in person, but we also did it, they promoted it as, it was a hybrid basically. They promoted it as also having a virtual option, and they're not able to do that anymore. The virtual part, because they would have to charge, and we don't charge anything. So we're going to be doing everything in person. And they thought that perhaps for us that we might get more people in person because they won't be offering so much virtually, because that's all going to be, there's going to be more of it done regionally and nationally. So that was what I understood, and I think it's mainly due to funding. But with any organization that is dependent on volunteers that are not being paid, I mean, it's just going to be different place to place in how they respond to this need. Our chapter is anticipating losing some members because apparently they have, or their, of their mentors, apparently they have had this conversation in the past about raising money, and there are people that are very opposed to doing fundraising or asking for support from elsewhere. And because their funding's been cut, they don't have what they had before. I don't know what is happening with SBDC funding, but our SBDC locally was in transition. They lost the director. And so I haven't been able to get anybody to give me any answers or talk to me about things because they still don't know what's going on, because we had a change in director right at the time where now I think there's still funding issues for them as well. But I don't have a clear picture of that. But our score did clearly say that funding was, I don't know if they said completely cut, but it definitely limited. I think they also said they were going to cut back on the number of chapters nationally.
I just wanted to add something. Hey, Kristen, good to hear from you. We were supposed to schedule an event for Veterans Day here with the SBA, which we've done for several years. And we just had a phone call from the gentleman's personal cell phone because they're not allowed to check their email or use their work cell phones during the furlough. But in our particular situation, they used to have 8 staff members in the SBA office here in Columbia, which is right up the street from the library. They lost 4 of those people and they are not being replaced. So the money issue, the money challenge is going all the way up to the federal government. And I think this is all interconnected. So, 4 people are supposed to do the same amount of work as 8 people. And when we met with this gentleman, we give him the auditorium for free. We provide the snacks. We've asked them to help with the setup and the takedown, but there is no money. I mean, they have funding for nothing, no money for lunch, so yeah, it's really challenging. And, same thing with Kristen, we're not allowed to charge for anything. So the idea of charging $10 for a webinar, that's not going to work.
And I realize I've been bad about looking at the chat, and I apologize for that. But Yolanda, your question about the $200 a month that we pay, it's a variety of topics. So it might be the how to start a business. We just had one where they had a business lender come and talk about how to be prepared to request a loan from an SBA lender, which was great. We've done a variety of other topics. I think for the spring, they're looking at like using AI to help market your business and a couple of other topics. So it varies. It's not a particular simple steps thing. Simple steps, like the simple steps for starting your business, is in the rotation. And once a year, we try to at least once a year, we try to do one in Spanish, because one of our SCORE presenters is Spanish is his primary language. So he always does a great job with that. And I will say, Matt, your discussion about starting to charge, when SCORE was the first connection we made when business became a focus for my library system, and I was going to the meetings a lot, and it was a hard sell to get them to do promotion for us because they were charging it when the workshops were in person. And they were long workshops at our SCORE office. This is the before times, like way before the pandemic. So it might be like a 5-hour workshop on the bookkeeping software that I can't think of right now, or it might be like a 4-hour workshop on marketing for your business. And so, and again, we can't charge customers obviously either for stuff, but we have a programming budget. So I worked with our SCORE chapter on like what would be a reasonable amount to charge. And we had this whole complicated formula that was like, we'll pay you this much per person up to this cap. And then I, a couple years ago, simplified it and said, how about if we give you $200 a month, which is a little bit more than we would like an honorarium for a presenter on a different topic. So, you know, we were already dealing with the payment thing, but I can see where if you've never had to pay SCORE to work with you, then it's definitely an adjustment. The other thing we've done here is we have a foundation. And so I put in a request, and 1 year the foundation sponsored all of our SCORE workshops. So getting creative with the funding on the library side. If there's other options for sponsorship, that would be another option. I don't know if I answered all the questions, Megan.
No, you're doing a great job. There's tons going on in the
Oh
chat.
my gosh, everybody's so lively. I love this.
I know.
I wish the news were better though, but
No. Well, that's so I was going to add some contrast here. So Jen Burns from Rochester, she wasn't able to be with us today, but she sent me a note yesterday that she'd reached out to their SCORE chapter just to see if there was anything different, and they said that um obviously the SCORE funding from the SBA depends on the local SBA's office, so it could be a small percentage. So in Rochester, it's a pretty small percentage, and they told her that Greater Rochester SCORE is not doing anything differently and is still providing the same services as before. So it sounds like they weren't very impacted, but yeah, I think it must be just kind of the funding models are very different from chapter to chapter on how much you're taking from SBA or other places. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation as well because she's having a good experience.
I'm glad somebody is.
Hey, Megan, I just wanted to share something because
Sure.
several years ago, we had a really strong relationship with SCORE. And there was a person who was interviewing people on the street, talking about the library and other things, you know, about the local downtown community here in Columbia. And so he stopped a woman and she said, "What is the best thing the library has done for you?" And the lady replied, "That SCORE 5-part series that they did, it was the best ever and it was totally free." So, you know, for us, it's very disappointing, but I would say as an alternative that you look at other business related organizations. We're fortunate here in Columbia that we have the City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities, and we also have Richland County's OSBO Office of Small Business Opportunities, who are ready, willing, and able to provide free programming. And so, you know, I don't know, it's hard to justify paying for something that you can get from other sources in your community for free. That's just how I personally feel about it.
I see your
Very
point
cool.
with that, Diane, but we don't have those organizations. So I it's I think that's where Spokane is a much smaller town than than what you've got over there, but that's a good perspective. Did I cut somebody off? I'm sorry.
I was going to say Diane's getting a lot of responses, I think, in the chat, or people are still just chiming in with things.
No, that's great.
Yeah, and I don't know, Brittany, if you wanted to, 'cause there's a bunch of folks on the call that weren't here at the top when you mentioned about your SBDC and the issue there. So if you wanted to talk about that again, or if you wanted to talk about how the chamber is stepping up.
Sure, I can chime in. Not probably not with the recording for the SBDC thing because I don't know how widely shared that is. But back to the SCORE funding, I think they've lost like federal funding, but when I saw their sponsors, they have some really huge sponsors that are backing them nationally. know about the individual chapters, but I did put in the chat that I worked with my local SCORE chapter back in May for 2 programs. And I somehow got connected with their program coordinator because I think our chapter is pretty big. So the program coordinator is the person that plans all the programs. So if you get in touch or find a person that does that type of work, that's really helpful. And what was the last thing I was going to say? Oh, you've noticed that our chambers, because I'm on all of their newsletters, they're starting to do these workshops. So I think somebody mentioned like a 5-part series. I've seen the Skokie, I think it's either the Skokie Chamber or the Evanston Chamber that is offering like SCORE themed workshops.
If Brittany, if you or if others want to say anything off the record, I'm happy to pause the recording as well. So that's always an option. I appreciate your sensitivity there. So just let me know.
So I'm curious, how many of us are still encouraging individuals that we're working with at the library to reach out to SCORE for mentoring help? Or do you feel like that part has also dried up with your chapter?
I have not encouraged anybody recently because my group is so small. I mean, it was like 5 or 6
Okay.
old folks.
We have
Gotcha.
no problem in Dallas. There are like 100 and they cover a pretty big area, but we have SCORE mentors still mentoring at our libraries, at 3 of our libraries on a regular
That's
basis. And we
that's
added
awesome.
Spanish actually just in September. So
That's amazing. Yay.
yay. Yeah. I feel blessed for sure.
Yeah, I'm still comfortable making that referral. I do need to touch base with my contacts over there, but as far as I can tell, the biggest change has been their funding for promotions.
Yeah.
Here,
Actually,
where I can say.
in a way that gives us a real opportunity because if we could almost take on part of their promotional element and they are doing what they've always done, which is offer free services because the people that are actually doing the work of mentoring are not getting paid. So they haven't lost anything. So if we're promoting what they're doing and they still want to do it, they're committed to it, I think that gives us an opportunity.
Oh, that's a good question. Randy's asking where we're referring nonprofit patrons to if SCORE isn't doing mentoring locally. Fortunately, our SCORE chapter is still, so we're sending our folks there, but others have ideas or sources, resources for nonprofits.
Hey, Stacy, we have an unusual situation because we had the entrepreneur in residence here at the library. We're currently on our 19th slot. And
Right.
that would be where we would recommend that our business customers go. I know that not everyone has that opportunity. But the other thing, depending upon what the need is, we have community partners that we can refer an individual customer to. So that works for us, but I think each community has a different makeup and, your resources are going to be different. So you just have to, I guess, do some research and figure out where you could send them if SCORE isn't able to meet one-on-one.
And if you haven't already, I would double check and see if there's a state. We have I just looked it up so that I wouldn't call it the wrong thing and it went right out of my brain. We have the Nonprofit Association of Washington. So that's something that we've referred people, and I see Laura nodding as well. So they can get them connected with some state and maybe federal resources. And also if there are some local folks that would be willing to do mentoring, I think that's maybe another option that they can provide. I'm not sure. Yeah, one of the things I was wondering about, maybe I'll ask at our chapter meeting in a couple weeks, is I don't know if the local, like if the chapters are talking to each other much, because it does just sound, based on this group's experiences, that each one is maybe approaching their own fundraising and sponsorship, pursuing sponsorships differently. And especially if, people, if the mentors, the volunteers don't want to be put in that position where they're having to go out and fundraise. Um, I hope that they're talking to each other, because I think one of the things our chapter did was apply for, there's another state group that supports businesses and businesses that support other businesses, and I think they got a grant from that business to support some of their workshop efforts and things like that. But um, yeah, and Kristen's right. Like the people that are mentoring, we're doing it for free. They're still doing it. Where I can see we're going to feel the pinch is I have some concerns about how we have a fall workshop series planned, and the two positions that were paid that are no longer there, they were the ones that were like the face of SCORE hosting the workshops. I was there as the face of the library. Um, and I don't know who's gonna well, I do know who, because they actually sent me the log. We do this with the SCORE chapters Zoom, and they sent me the the login information. So it could be that I'm like starting the workshop and getting the host going, which I'm fine to help out doing that. But looking at our spring workshops, like when my chapter was very slow to get things transferred to online during the pandemic. Seattle was like right on it. But Spokane took a while. When they did get on it, we had been using the library Zoom, and they asked if they could use their account, because then they can plug it into all of their marketing. And so that's the piece that I'm concerned we're not going to have when we get to the spring workshops next year, is that it won't be plugged into their internal system where every chapter can see what workshops are coming up nationally, across the nation. And so, that's not going to be me. I don't know how to do that. I don't want to know how to do that. So hopefully there's someone, and I love our president of the chapter, but he's not the most tech savvy person. So I don't think it's going to be Ron. So we'll see how that goes. Other thoughts about SCORE or the SBA or the SBDC? Or something else that I can't think of?
Well, if we switch topics a little bit to the SBDCs, I just found out this week that my SBDC locally is probably going to shut down because the local university is having huge budget cuts. I mean, they're cutting 15 majors. I'm not sure they can call themselves a university next year.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, SOU, Southern Oregon University.
Mm,
And they've been matching the federal funds for the SBDC and providing office space.
mm.
And so Marshall just found out that the university's funding is getting pulled as of January. And he's retiring, so he doesn't care. He doesn't care much now. But
No.
he is definitely on his way out. But I don't think, without him to advocate, I don't think we're really going to even have an SBDC. So I may be it in Jackson County. There is another SBDC in Grants Pass, which is about 45 minutes away, associated with the local community college. So I need to reach out to Ruth and find out what's going on. But for those of us in rural areas, I think it's going to be really not much happening for a while.
Rosalind, remind me, where's your closest SBA office?
I have probably Portland.
Portland, okay.
Yeah. I actually just looked at the SBA site because I had never actually heard of an SBA office down here or even in like Eugene.
Hmm,
And from the
interesting.
site, it doesn't look like there is. So I haven't missed it. But yeah,
Hmm,
zero presence down here. And but
that's rough.
the state has a Business Oregon, but they're mostly about low cost loans to businesses in various industries, and they only focus on traded sector
Hmm.
goods. So no service businesses, no nonprofits. So so they do have a presence down here, but they have a very small focus.
Stacy, this is a great conversation.
It's kind of a downer, so I'm sorry
Yeah.
about that. I'm
It
I
sorry
don't
about
know
is.
if
that.
we provided any answers, but I think it's really good to hear the breadth of experiences and just what other people are hearing.
Mhm.
Um, I will, of course, say we can continue this conversation on Slack. So if you hear anything about SCORE, SBDC, that's worth sharing with others, please post that there. So we try to sort through, yeah, if they're kind of what they're doing, what's going on with the budget, or if they're trying to kind of centralize nationally, or, all of these different questions that have been raised.
Sounds good.
Yeah, Stacy, any other thoughts from you?
No, I was just going to say that I, definitely looking forward to our October chapter meeting. And if I have any updates, good or bad, I'll definitely post them on the Slack. Um, I the one thing that I forgot to mention was that our chapter president shared was the whole thing about kind of combining the regional chapters into one per state. Apparently, they sort of forgot the Spokane chapter, and I don't know if that's because we also I say we like I'm actually in it, but
Mhm.
because geographically they also provide mentoring and business services to northern Idaho. So I don't know if that's why it maybe wasn't as on the radar as like Yakima Valley, which is clearly in Washington State, and Seattle, which is clearly in Washington State. But um, so there was a little hiccup about that. But I will be really interested to see if I don't know if I don't want to say they're going rogue, but like I don't know what they're hoping to do to like get around national dipping in and taking their sponsorship funds and things like that. So just if there's a way to work with your local SCORE office, if there's a way that you can, provide honorariums or something to look into, if your friends group or your foundation can help out with that, if it's worth it. I mean, I get what you're saying, Diane, like if you've got lots of other resources where you can get that for free, then why would you pay for it? But if SCORE is like the one game in town, like it kind of is for us, then whatever you can do to keep that going during this time would be probably much appreciated and beneficial for your patrons too. Oh, okay.
Thanks, Brittany.
Yeah, thank you. Please. I know I did a lot of talking. Does anyone else have any other thoughts or final? I appreciate how much everyone had to share, whether it was on voice or in the chat. This was a great discussion.
No, it's really
Oh,
interesting to
jeez.
kind of hear all the different reactions and
Yeah,
ramifications to different state structures.
yeah,
So I'm glad that some of the SCORE chapters are continuing to at least provide mentoring.
yeah,
That's at least something,
yeah.
especially if the SBDCs are going to be restricted to citizens. It doesn't say, let's see, oh, legally resident in the United States. So at least they'll talk to people with green cards. From what Brittany's posted in the chat, under the executive order, it says, limit access to program services to those who are U.S. citizens or otherwise legally resident in the U.S. So I guess you're okay if you've got a green card.
That's a great question, Alice. I don't know that I have a great answer right now. Um, what do you do to maintain inner resilience during this time and foster resilience within your communities? Drinking wine isn't the right answer, I don't think.
Drinking wine is a valid answer from my point of view.
But how can that not be a valid answer?
That is a very valid answer.
In moderation, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Actually, maybe even like creating wine. What is the word that they call it? You know, like making wine could be a part of it.
That's true. I think for me, Alice, I kind of focus, it's just so easy to get overwhelmed. And I've gotten to the point where I can't watch the news most days because it's just too much. And so I try to narrow my focus to the person that's in front of me that I'm helping. And, you know, I really try to do a better job of celebrating successes and not just be like, oh yeah, that one's done, I'll move on to the next one. Because there's just, in my opinion, there's not a lot of great news these days. So trying to celebrate more of those successes, both for myself and my colleagues, is one of those things. I don't know. I see nodding heads. Other things besides the wine that y'all
And
are doing.
it's a great time to think outside the box and be innovative and look for new partners and others that align with this direction.
That is an excellent point, Kristen.
I get mad and I mobilize, but that is in my
Ooh,
personal light.
there you go.
No kings.
I think there's something to be said about like all this great stuff that still happens at the local level, like really seeing a community response and come
This
together.
is true.
And the library is a great hub of that. We hear so many cool stories
We
from where
do.
I sit about like, the library pivoted and figured out a way to get, devices to local students or, resources that people need to learn about kind of some of the changes to, I don't want to say our laws because the laws haven't actually changed, but the way we understand them, so, yeah. This was a really wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, Stacy, for
Yes,
throwing
thank
your
you.
hat in to facilitate this.
Thank you for letting me talk for most of the time. No one should ever let me do that.
No, you were great. I'm going to invite you anytime.
Oh
Just
my gosh.
give you a
Do you,
topic and have you.
do you have a topic for next month yet? I don't want to pressure you, but just curious
Stacy, if you feel like talking, call me anytime.
Kristen, I will take you
I
up on
miss
that for
you.
sure.
So
I miss
do
you
call anytime,
too.
seriously.
Fantastic. I'll do it.
That's so fun. There's like real friendships in this group. I think I need to confirm with him, but I think Jay Lyman from Seattle is going to come and talk to us about what's going on in their programming. So I'll
Jay knows his
confirm that.
stuff.
I know
That'll be
Jay's cool.
great.
So I think
Oh my
that's
gosh.
November. But yes, if folks want to ever present or facilitate a discussion in this group, please reach out to me. We're always looking for featured speakers. You don't have to be an expert on the subject. Like you can facilitate a conversation as we did today. That's often that's great because we really had a nice discussion. So I'm open to all of your ideas on that. And yeah, we meet monthly. So like I said, I think I have somebody for November, but December and onward, I'm very open to having you come on and talk. So yeah, I think anything else before we close out? Cool. Thanks again, Stacy. I'll leave
You're
the
welcome.
line open if anybody wants to hang back and chat. But otherwise, I hope everyone has a great afternoon.